Have you ever thought about repairing your smartphone? Like, really thought about it? Or rather, have you ever dropped and then cracked a phone and you got a feeling in the pit of your stomach? You're scared. You're scared because you know this repair is going to be expensive and that you're out of warranty since it's been much more than 90 days. So you go to the phone store with your phone with a cracked back and they tell you you're out of warranty and that this is going to be $500 since this is a non-replaceable part. But, you know, it's only $300 more for a new iPhone 15 for $800. So you suck it up and you pay the price for the repair of the new phone. But in that moment, you thought to yourself, man, can I just do this myself? Is the cost to do this really $500? And in that moment, you realized why people want the right to repair smartphones. So what is the right to repair? You may have heard of it before, but what does it actually mean? Well, the right to repair is the idea that if you own something, you should be able to repair yourself or take it to a technician of your choice. And that technician means not just the manufacturer like the Apple Store. This is similar to how we have a right to free speech. There are people out there who believe we have a right to repair electronics. Historically, we've just accepted that we just can't repair our smartphones ourselves. How is this right to repair important for smartphones? Well, smartphones don't last that long. They last 2.5 years, on average. I know you may have kept your phone for much longer. High-end phones like Apple phones can last up to 6 years, but many of these don't make it past the first year in which a person just buys a new phone. Along with this, the price of purchasing these phones is increasing. Last year in the US, we were at an average of $724 for a new smartphone. To address these issues, one of the most obvious answers is to just make our devices last longer. One way for us as consumers to do this is through repairs. So why are consumers only keeping their phones for 2.5 years? Why are we constantly buying new phones? It breaks down into three main reasons: hardware degradation, software, and the high cost to repair some phones. Glass breaks, batteries decrease in capacity and age, and your phone hardware doesn't always keep up. And as your phone ages, software support decreases, and eventually you reach the point that your phone stops getting updates. We've already gone over an example of a high repair cost, but this is a big driver for people to not repair their phone, and we instead rationalize just getting a new one. There are consequences to this. The consequences of not holding onto these devices is incentivizing premature obsolescence and creating e-waste. Phones on average don't last long, but we just seem to accept that game consoles last 6 years, which is puzzling. Are we paying $724 for a phone that lasts half the time a $500 console does? These phones aren't reaching their full lifespan, and this 2.5-year cycle where we cut its life short is called premature or planned obsolescence. And policymakers are just now getting around to addressing it. In the EU, research states that policymaking falls short in addressing the waste issues, natural resource consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions and other negative impacts posed by premature obsolescence. Smartphones are uniquely bad for the environment. We don't recycle them. Just over 17% of the world's e-waste is properly recycled. And there are 16 billion phones out there, and a third of them are just sitting in people's cupboards. These phones contain precious metals that we must mine again each time we throw a phone out and make a new one. These are copper, silicon, lithium, gold, and cobalt. Just last year, it's estimated that we threw out 5 billion of these devices, and now we just have to go and mine all these rare earth metals again. So, what do we do? Well, if you have a phone and you know no one's going to use it, you should just send it to a recycling center. Don't just let it sit there in your house unused. But if it's still usable but damaged, you should consider repairing it. If not for yourself, then it can also be turned in to be refurbished and resold and reused. If that isn't enough to convince you to repair your phone, you should then consider the benefits. We can save money by repairing by yourself or by a technician. It's cheaper than getting it done by the manufacturer, and significantly cheaper than buying new. It reduces environmental impact by not producing e-waste. Convenience. You don't have to learn how to use a new device again or risk losing any data. We can also support local and small businesses by taking your phone to a local shop. And finally, you can learn a new skill. And by repairing yourself, you learn technician skills that you can potentially use to earn money yourself. Repairing smartphones is getting easier and cheaper as well. The average cost to repair a smartphone has not increased with inflation, and especially expensive repairs on the iPhone like the back glass have halved in cost on the new iPhone 15. Just 3 months ago, the Fairphone 5 released. And this is one of the only phones to receive a perfect score in repairability by iFixit, a 10 out of 10, meaning this phone needs no special tools or experience to repair it. Most new phones are around the 5 to 6 in the score range, but some, like the iPhone 12 like we mentioned, has an infamously hard to repair back glass that could only be done by a technician. To repair this phone, if you're not Apple, you had to completely crack it by stabbing it with a glass breaker. Then you had to use a heated blade to pry all that glass off away from the assembly, bit by bit, in a very tedious process. In comparison, newer iPhones like the 15 only need a hairdryer and a pick to move the glass, which is why the repair is half the cost. Processes like these are really the new standard for repairs. Manufacturers now sell official repair parts. Apple started their own self-repair process just last year, after right-to-repair policies went into effect. Consumers can now buy genuine new parts directly from the manufacturer, which was not the case before. Companies are designing repairs in mind. The average repair is getting easier to do, and in part this is because of the EU wanting to respond to right-to-repair demands from consumers. It's not just in the US where people feel this way. Companies must follow new guidelines, and as a result, planned obsolescence is now also banned. Companies must provide support for years instead of just leaving their phone to die after the 2 years of planned software support. And US states are initiating their own fights with their own right-to-repair laws. This year, in 2023, California passed the broadest right-to-repair law yet, and 3 other states also passed their own right-to-repair laws as well. With repairs getting easier, cheaper, and more accessible, it's time to start considering repairing your own smartphone. If we can extend the life of our smartphones, we can end this cycle, and we can reduce the emissions and e-waste caused by throwing our devices out prematurely. So, the next time you damage your phone, consider repairing it. And if you're not going to, do the right thing. Make sure it gets recycled. Don't just leave it in your cupboard to sit there and waste away. And with that, I hope I convinced you to consider repairing. Thank you for listening.